You take the opening prayer. No.
Asha, would you like to?
No worries, I can do that. शं नो मित्रं शं वरुणः शं नो भवत्वर्यमा शं नो इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शं नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्ष ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि हृदं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. We can't hear you, Bidan.
Thank you so much for this beautiful prayer. Why don't we start?
Okay, I will share my.
Just a minute. I just allow the presentation. Please go ahead.
Can I do that? Can I start? Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sure. So salutations to our gurus Adi Shankaracharya and Swami Paramarthananda. Let me start. So first I'd like to start with an interesting thought about, so we'll take 2 steps back, right, before we start with law of karma. And I'll take this interesting sentence which Swami Sarvapriyananda was reciting. And let's assume we are looking at a play, and in the play there is a villain, there is a hero. At the end of it, the villain is not punished, and the villain is fine, and the hero dies, right? And suddenly in the audience, we are struggling with this question, and the question is, but who will punish the villain? Right? Who will punish the villain? But we forget that it is just a play. So that question doesn't make sense. Who will punish the villain has no significance. And why I wanted to start with it is, when we look at law of karma or any of these constructs, one thing we need to realize is, let's not look at the finger. Let's look at what it is pointing to. So ultimately, all constructs are supposed to help us transcend and achieve God realization or liberation from samsara, right? That was the whole purpose which we started with. And Vyavaharika level, what we are seeing at a transactional level, is just the preparatory ground for us to elevate ourselves to go to that next goal. So we should not get lost in the law of karma, because ultimately it is like looking at the finger and not looking at what it is pointing to, right? So that was the context I want to start with. And we know that what we have to do in terms of going towards that goal, and we've already discussed the qualities that have to be developed. We all know all the sadhan chatushtaya, the fourfold qualifications that we had to do. And how is that related now is, when we have a loss of wealth or health or relationships, it leads to suffering. But this suffering, what is it supposed to lead us to? It's supposed to lead us to the learning that these are all transient. And ultimately, I have to develop a dispassion towards all of these. I can't derive happiness from any of these. And finally, it is something permanent that I have to latch on to. So the whole idea of these qualities that we are trying to develop, which is ultimately going to lead us to the final God realization, is this understanding of transience and permanence. And most of these learnings unfortunately happen much more through pain rather than through pleasure. It's a hard, I think, thing for all of us to stomach, that most of the things that we feel is a good life and we are all having a very comfortable life actually is not elevating us. It is actually just letting us live in status quo, because everything is going on fine and we get more and more involved in our material pursuits, right? So that was another context. And now let us look at the law of karma. So all actions have an effect, is what we saw last time, which what Prema was talking about, that there is papam and there is punyam, and there is ultimately which will have an effect, like how Swami Vivekananda said, good, good, bad, bad, none escape the law. So everything will happen and everything will have an effect. The only difference is it is a cosmic law. We have laws in our transactional world. We have laws for everything, our judiciary, our traffic lights, everything of how we do the same law, but it is at a cosmic level. That is the only difference. One distinction I wanted to make is between rebirth theories and karma theory. So interestingly, there are many religions in the world which have rebirth theories, but they don't necessarily subscribe to a karma theory. But for karma theory to accept, to exist, you need the rebirth theory. But there is a small line between the two. So not every religion goes with karma theories. There are many religions which go with rebirth theories. So karma theory is something that we find in Hinduism, in Buddhism, and all that. And we come to advantages of law of karma, and I would like to relate it back to the qualities which we were talking about. So the first advantage when we look at law of karma, and something which we often think about, is why is there a difference between what I have in my life versus what someone else is born with. Now if someone is, let's say, the son of Ambani, why is it different? Why am I born in this life, and why is someone having so much of material wealth? I mean, these are common comparisons that we do, right? And this law of karma, when we understand that all of it is based on what we have done in the past, if we really believe in it, then comes what we are trying to develop is acceptance of what destiny has given us, acceptance in terms of a prasada buddhi, saying this is what I have got and let me now live my life the best way I can. The second thing is the why me question, something which always bothers us anytime. And interestingly, as Anand had pointed out, why me question is something that comes only when we are suffering. We never get this question when we are having a good time, when we have a great time, or we are getting a lot of recognition at work or some other place. We don't say, why am I getting this suffering? Why is that person not getting that, all this rewards and all which I am getting? Why am I only getting it? So it is only during the hard times that we get this why me question. And there also we have to accept that this is something that has to happen. It has happened. I only have the choice of how I react to it. How am I going to accept this? So this is helpful in developing titiksha, which is tolerance and a mental fortitude, and samatvam. So this is what ultimately that why me. So acceptance will help in developing both of them. The third thing is, which is very common, that if some misfortune happens, the first thing someone says is, oh, I prayed so many times and I have done so much, I was a God believer, why has God done this to me? What did I do to deserve it? Right? So faith in God is completely shaken, and we know of so many cases where people stop praying after that. And the whole thing starts looking at it, in a very transactional manner. I prayed to God, so God should give me a good life, and it has not happened, so I will stop praying to God. So the whole idea of law of karma, if you were to believe, then you understand that it's not that God is unjust. So what happens is you maintain your shraddha in God. So that is how it helps us. Then the fourth thing is, I can take responsibility for my future. We can call it an illusion or whatever, but we can take a responsibility for my future. And I can actively work towards doing either good karma by itself, or karma yoga, or at least refining my vasanas, which is, I know that this is something that is going to carry forward through my subtle body and it's going to go on to my next life. Let me at least do that. So I can have some level of responsibility, I can have that illusion, and I can work towards it. Even if you call it an illusion, I will be working towards something good, which will ultimately take me on my path, which is the final destination. So I can do that. Then it brings morality in society. Oftentimes we have this, right? Why be good? Why to live an ethical life? So there, if we believe in the law of karma, we understand that if we do immoral things, obviously immoral things, it is not like there are shades of gray in everything. There are certain things which are obviously immoral. We know that these are things that are not good, and most of the time, in our conscience, we don't have to ask anyone. We normally know what is right and what is wrong. We might choose to suppress it, but if we don't do that, we normally know what is the right thing to do at any point of time. So we understand the concept of yama and niyama, and when we live by that ethics, we automatically start developing a control of our mind and control of our sense organs also, which is sama and dhamma, right? So this is another advantage. And finally, you cannot blame anyone for my I cannot blame anyone for my current situation. Today what I have is what I was meant to get, and what I can do is I can deal with it the best way. That is all that is in my control, and that is acceptance. So we have not differing, but many viewpoints which kind of go towards the same idea. And one is from Sri Aurobindo, where he says that suffering is not punishment and suffering is helpful in evolution. So if we look at it this way, our whole definition of good and bad changes. Actually, when we are going through suffering, we are actually elevating ourselves. So is that suffering good or bad? Because it is only through suffering that I'm going to elevate myself, and somewhere I start seeing the uh, transiency of everything that I felt was always going to be with me. It satisfies both the body, the mind and the heart, and empowers the person to face life boldly, which is what Swami Tyagananda says. And as he mentions that many times we kind of evaluate everything between just the narrow confines of the birth and death we have, and we don't look at the entire canvas, which is the entire lifetimes that we have been living. We are actually very ancient beings, right? So but we are able to see only this life, and we come to many conclusions based on that, but actually it is not that. So when we actually understand that it is law of karma which is at play, we can actually view it in a much larger canvas. So what are the alternatives, right? If you aren't going to believe law of karma, what are the alternatives you have right now? So one is the result of random chance, which is what nihilistic theories talk about, right? Everything in life is random. Why someone is having a good life, why someone is a bad life, right? It is just like a game of dice. You don't know what you'll get. Now that is fine, but that's not going to give us any kind of strength. If you were to believe in a very nihilistic way of thinking, it doesn't give you strength. The second one is those who suffer now will rejoice later in heaven. So this is also a hypothesis that is around, where people say, "Acha, you're suffering now, but in heaven you'll have a lot of good things happening to you." But it doesn't explain why suffering exists in the first place. Why should someone suffer? So this theory also has that. And then the third one is like, if everything was the will of God, then why is there so much of disparity? And then it becomes like a willful or an unjust God. So these are the alternatives you have. And when you look at all of this, you realize that what law of karma is actually giving us, and how much strength it gives us. So when you look at the mental model which you can create for law of karma, and I think here I should say that these are the two things I actually read in some of the Western critiques also about law of karma. And this is where I thought that many of the points that they talk against, can be kind of justified. So there are two ways to look at it. One is a very common way to look at it, which is theory of retribution or revenge. So if you did something good, past mistakes means you will get current punishment. Past good deeds means you will get current rewards. So which is a extremely transactional way of looking at it, right? So if I am going through a bad time, this is because of something I've done bad. If I'm going through a good time, it's because of something I've done good. So it's almost like you'll be doing a weighing kind of balance, and you're comparing both of them. Oh, I did charity work some 10 times this life, so I am going to get x number of things in my next life, right? That is an equation we might want to form in our mind. But this model has a lot of critiques, and as we can see, it becomes very transactional, and it doesn't really lead us to our ultimate goal. We should never lose sight of that ultimate goal we are going towards, which is developing those qualities to finally elevate us and go towards god realization. Our goal is not to continue in this life and make sure we live the next life better and we continue in this cycle, right? If you look at it that way, then the next way to look at it, which I found to more to my liking, is the theory of evolution. that it's a theory of spiritual evolution where ultimate purpose is God realization. And what we are getting is just past tendencies, and past tendencies are changing our current circumstance, are basically dictating the circumstances we are getting. And pain or pleasure are just two sides of the coin, they're just different experiences, right? So we can, coming back to that last question, why do good? There are two ways to look at it. One is that good is done to me later, or the second way to look at it is, let me improve my tendencies and evolve, because that is what is my ultimate spiritual evolution. Yeah, so that's it from me, Bidan, and everyone.
Thank you so much, Asha. I mean, it's quite detailed, quite nicely presented. Thank you.
I say thank you, because it was
Nicely
like
presented.
power.
Yeah.
It is a power pack capsule of wow.
Thank you. Thanks, Anand.
Anyone has any questions for us?
No questions, but the place where she spoke about vasanas, no? Vasanas created and vasanas, that reminds me or take me back to uh, our typical example what Bidan gives, that when you jump a signal, there are certain outcomes that will happen. Either you get caught, you don't get caught. Okay. So the vasanas are created because of such subtle actions. So correcting those vasanas was what she was referring to. And one more point that which I would also want to ask Asha is that this karma phala, what we are talking about, no, is also based on certain hidden variables sometimes. That is also one of the theories that they say. Action is karma, and effect is karma is cause and effect. Action is karma, and effect is phala. But at times, it is not as linear as it is looking like. There are certain hidden variables where the phala depends on that. Like I think last time we discussed drishya phala and adrishya phala. And that is where I think the today's further classes of, all our other types of karma will come into play.
True. So I also would like to add one point here, is if you were to look at that the whole thing is spiritual evolution,
Hmm.
right? Then it is not just about that transactional way. If you don't look at it that way, then you realize that you could view it as circumstances which are actually helping you evolve. Every
Exactly.
life is actually helping you evolve. It might proceed in a very jagged manner, a little bit here, a little bit there, but every life you are. So I think that shloka is also there in Bhagavad Gita, where Sri Krishna says that whatever good you are doing, it is not like it will go back to zero after this life. It's all getting added up.
Yeah, true. And also the addition that you and me have had multiple number of births. Just that I remember all and you remember none.
Correct.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
birth, in the sense, in a bigger picture of the birth,
Right.
that I remember everything, that my whatever that karmas, whatever he's carrying.
Right.
I mean, I'm not talking about Krishna as a god, but Krishna as a concept.
Right.
So I remember all and you remember none. That's where the question comes that, why me?
Right. True.
Thank you. And also we will, during the end of the session, try and address the query that we had in the last. But can I become an animal if I don't do good karmas? So let's address that, but not right now. Let's do it towards the end of the session. All right, so let's go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, so Bidan, I'll be sharing my screen if you can give me the controls. Sorry. My screen visible? So
Yes.
salutations and yeah, so thank you, Asha, for the law of karma, and you took us through that. Yeah. So the shloka here is karmani katividani santithe chet agami sanchita prarabdha bedena trividani santi. I know I committed mistakes, but yeah. So the basic explanation of this is this being asked as to how many kinds of karma are there. So there are three kinds of karmas. One is agami, one is sanchita, and one is prarabdha, right? And what are these? These are terms used to describe what are the types of results of the actions that come. And just to go on, I know that the next few shlokas go in depth about each one of these karmas, but just to cover a bit at, at a very surface level is sanchita. Sanchita means accumulated, something that you carry on. So sanchita karma or accumulated karma refers to your total karma, including what you've inherited from your past lifetimes that you are certainly not aware of. Prarabdha karma is, or the allotted karma is the selection of karma from your total karma that you carry through your current lifetime. So your allotted karma shapes, the situations that you face. You can work through your accumulated karma by living out a portion of it in each lifetime. We just spoke about different lifetimes. Of course, we don't know which and where, but yes, in the current one, we live through that. And finally, agami karma, which is the future actionable karma, which refers to the karma that's generated by your current actions, that is in our current lifetimes, which may or may not have consequences in this lifetime or in future lifetimes. So that's about the shloka. That's it from me, Vidhan.
Any questions? I just wanted to add one thing which is not there in this text. Is as Anand has mentioned, there are three kinds of karma. One is sanchita karma, which is all the karmic karmas accumulated for all your lifetimes. A part of it, you are born in this lifetime, so you will go through certain good times and not so good times. That is your prarabdha karma. There is also another karma which is called kriyamani karma, which it's not there in the shloka. And good, since Anand brought this out, I'll just fill it in. So when you are going through good times and when you're not going through good times or you're going through stable times, you will take an action. That action that you take in response to your current situation is called kriyamani karma. And the outcome of that action is your agami karma. So how I respond to my current situation, that creates further karma. So that is agami karma, and that agami karma may get rectified in this lifetime or in the following lifetime. So that's the reason this just wanted to bring this out, that there's something called kriyamani karma, which is not in this shloka, but there are references. It's like, it's very commonsensical that, okay, I'm going through a situation, I will take an action. That action is called kriyamani, and that action will result an outcome. That outcome is agami.
Agami.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anand. This sort of puts it together.
Thank you, Vidhan.
Who's taking the next?
I'll be taking the next for them.
So, Anand, maybe you'll have to just exit the street.
One second. Do I?
You just do stop presentation. It will be there on the top side somewhere.
Okay. Stop share.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you all able to see this?
Yes.
Okay. So salutation to our gurus. This is 37.2 Shloka. 1 second. I'm not able to read it because the images are coming. So this shloka says, Gnano pataya nantaram, Gnani deha kritam, Punya papa rupam karma, Yadasti, Tadagami Tada agami tya bhidhiyate. I think my pronunciations are not great, but yeah. So what it means is that the first part, which is Gnano Patya Nantaram, means after the dawn of knowledge, Gnani Deha Kritam. So we are talking of a realized body or a realized soul here. And Punya Papa Rupam, which means the nature of the merit, demerit, good or evil. Karma, that is the action. Yadasti means whatever. And then it says Tada Agami Tyabi Diyate, means whatever whatever are there, that is called Agami. So this is how the shloka is. If you if you want a summary of that, it says the results of actions in the form of sin or virtue done by the body of a realized person after the awakening of self-knowledge is known as Agami Karma. Now, let me just explain to you that this shloka is keeping in mind a realized person. So, I think there are it's only that what is a realized person. I think we spoke about Jivan Mukta, right? So let me just go to the next slide. Before that, I think this is already covered by Anand, but just to tell you all the types of karmas that we have. Sanchita karma, which is the big cloud, the storage that we have. From Sanchita, there will be in your current lifetime, you'll have Prarabdha karma, which is definitely the portion of Sanchita karma and will fructify in this lifetime. Now, Agami karma are the responses to the actions that you take, right? So that is in this lifetime, some of which you may see it now, or in the future lifetimes, it will go back and join the Sanchita pool. So this is the experience of a jiva, right? Jiva is still not the realized soul, right? So we are talking of types of people here in Agami Karma, which I got to know in the shloka, is that one, Jiva is where we are still attached to our body and mind, our roles, responsibilities, body and mind. And Jivan Mukta is who no more has that sense of doership or enjoyerships. So basically, Jivan Mukta is one who stops identifying with the body and mind. So which means that Jivan Mukta is actually not accumulating any Agami Karma. For a person who is viewing it, it may seem like it's Punyam or Papam or whatever it is, but Jivan Mukta doesn't see it like that. For example, I think there was an example of Swami Paramahamsa, where they kept asking, his disciples were asking, why can't you pray to God and ask your illness or your suffering to be gone while he was ill? So he said that I am not feeling that at any point in time, that I am going through any suffering, because he was at a different level where he stopped identifying with his body and mind, right? So he is Jivan Mukta. But what we're saying is that, this particular shloka talks of only Jivan Muktas who have realized this piece. And just to give a visual representation, basically your Prarabdha plus Agami is what your current life will look like. So in this, the Agami are the results of fresh actions that you take, which will either be Punyam or Papam. Now, there are a lot of questions as to what comes under Punyam and who qualifies them as Punyam, Papam. These are things that even I had a lot of questions. And I think when you listen to interpretations they're also very different. They come with their own, commentaries, their own things. So, but yes, I have a lot of questions on what is punyam and what is papam. How do we decide that? But this is what it is. And in this agami, if you see, part of it will be fructified in this current life itself. And whatever is not will go back to the Sanchita Karma pool. So this is what happens. And Agami Karma for a Jivan Mukta is, he stops identifying, like I already mentioned, with the body and mind. So the scriptures say such a person who no more has that sense of doership or enjoyship does not acquire any Agami Karma. And I think the rest of it is already covered by Asha. I will not repeat this. But I would just like to add a few points that I had made for my own self, that I felt, what is this law of karma trying to do, or what are the scriptures trying to tell us through this? I think the first thing they want us to do is to stop blaming others in your life, because it's very easy for us to keep blaming people and situations that happen in our life. So I think law of karma is made for that, and I found that very profound in one of the commentaries, that it's a way to quieten your mind, because we always question why. There's a lot of question, and I think when you put the law of karma in place, I think these questions help you quieten your mind and accept, like how Asha mentioned, that acceptance is there. And I think we step into our spiritual path, because it's never outwardly. The journey is always inwards. And I think with this as a stepping stone, you can actually start moving inwards, where instead of controlling, so in one of the commentaries, he gave an example of how my life is miserable because of my wife, right? So you will always try to change your wife, right? So is that a spiritual path that you're taking? No, because you're trying to change other things around here. But instead, you start looking inwards, and that is where your spiritual journey starts. And I think this is the purpose of law of karma, and I thought it is very profound. And I think it moves our attention to ourselves, right? And every thought, it brings back to our own self. It comes back to us. So I think it's an amazing tool for us to start. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
That was great, Sapna. I really like the way you've given your own interpretation also, and the thoughts that you had resonated really well with all of us. But one small question I had. So you mentioned about the Jivan Muktas getting Agami Karma. So I was a little confused about that, because I thought Agami Karma is something that everyone accumulates during their birth, and we are not Jivan Muktas, right? So as we are proceeding.
Sorry. Not accumulates in birth, accumulates during the lifetime.
During the lifetime, we are accumulating. So isn't that Agami Karma? But we are not Jivan Muktas. So are we not doing that?
I think
Agami karma, actually, in one of the analogies that I was reading, is the bow that, it is the arrow in the bow. So the archer is the one who decides to shoot it the way he wants to. That is the one, is the current situation, because that is in your hand. That is the analogy, one of the things. It is that during the lifetime, the actions you take. But as Asha said, if we become Jivan Mukta, where does the Agami karma come into picture?
No, there is no Agami Karma then. I think you don't accumulate. Bidan, please jump in if required. But I think my understanding is that if you don't identify yourself as with your roles and with your body and mind, I think there is no, then you're going with the flow, right? Just think about it. Like, then nothing is affecting you practically. So, which means that there are no patterns you're creating, there are no attachments you're creating. So, then your Agami is.
No, that is fine. No, the confusion was with your first slide. I think that I missed. In that first slide, actually it says that you have agami karma for a realized soul. That I did not understand how that shloka is saying that. You take the
Okay,
first
no, no,
slide.
it's no, 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 sorry. The first slide says that, see, this shloka is keeping in mind only the realized souls. This is what the commentary says, that, while there are two kinds of people, but in this particular slide, we are talking of the Jivan Muktas. For them, the Agami Karma, and this is also from the view of others, not from himself. This is from view of others, because there will be no punyam and papam also. So what they're saying is that this is how we would view, like how they saw that Swami Paramahamsa, he was suffering, he was ill, but he said, I don't have a problem with it, it's not suffering for me. So for us, we feel like it's a papam for him, he's going through illness, or I think that's what he was trying to say, that for others it seems like a punyam or papam, but for me it is not. It is not like that. And I think there is no agami karma here, but of course I think Vidhan, you can clarify this better maybe.
I know where the confusion is coming from. What in the first slide it told that the actions taken by the realized soul leads to agami karma. I think that is where the confusion is coming from. While the realized soul will not have an agami karma. So maybe we'll have to just relook at that. So I get it. I get from where you're coming. Isn't that what you're asking, Asha, right?
Yeah, that is the confusion. So I was just wondering whether the some other meaning exists, that because it seems to be at odds, right? So we are saying if you're realized, then there is no agami karma, but at
Right.
the same time you're saying that realized souls karmas is agami karma. So that
Yeah,
I
realized
should
soul
not.
current. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what. So something we have to look at the shloka.
Mm.
That's something that we should get back.
Yeah, sure.
I also sort of observed that.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I think the uh, the track on which we are looking at karma is right. Generally, what happens most of the time when we are looking at karma, we are looking at more from a transactional perspective. That I do good, I will get good. I do bad, I will get bad. And then there is a complication that what is good, what is bad, who decides for me, what is dharma, what is adharma, and then the discussion gets into a lot of complications. But what I'm loving about this group is that you're getting the real essence of doctrine of karma, where you are not necessarily trying to decipher what is good and what is bad. You are understanding the concept of law of karma is that I take responsibility rather than trying to change anyone or anything. And once I start taking responsibility of my own self, that is a spiritual journey in itself. Right. So it's not about trying to earn so-called punyams or diminish so-called papams. So that's not where, because unfortunately, most of the time, our discussions go in that direction. But the beautiful part of this group is that we are clearly saying that the doctrine of karma is not here as a theory of punishment or a theory of reward. We are not viewing doctrine of karma as a theory of punishment or a theory of reward. We are rather looking at doctrine of karma to take responsibility of my own current situation. Instead of trying to change people and things around me, I am taking the responsibility and trying to respond in the best possible manner, because somewhere I do not hold anyone responsible for the current situation. I know the current situation is a function of a lot of factors which has happened in the past, which I may not be aware of, and therefore I take responsibility and then act. That is the beauty of it. And I'm so glad that each one of us are actually thinking on that direction. That's the right way to look at doctrine of karma. Great. Wonderful. So, Kaushal, it's your. Shall I just present the slide?
Please. So salutations to our gurus. Vidhan, can we go to the next one? Yeah. This time the shlokas 37.3 and 37.4 both are quite straightforward. So let us see. The 37.3 says, "As sanchita karma kim." What is sanchita karma? So Vidhan, the next one. Ananta koti janmanam bija bhutam sat yat karma jatam purvaji purvarjitam tishtati tat sanchitam jayam. Gneyam. Okay, the results of actions performed in all the previous births, which are in the seed form, give rise to endless crores of births in future, is called sanchita karma, the accumulated karma. So there is quite a lot of, I think, information that we have shared previously already about sanchita karma. Basically, sanchita is something that is accumulated. So this is sanchita karma, is all the karmas that we have accumulated, could be the punyams or the papams, all of that, in all of our previous births, and they are in the seed form. Could we go to the next slide, Vidhan? Okay. So in this one, so we come across sanchita karma and what it is for a samsari. For an agnani, right? So basically the jiva. It is quite easy. Accumulated punyam and papam of the past human lives. Now again, if you remember, I think we might have talked about it last session. In anything other than the human form, we do not accumulate karma. So we are born as any other sentient being other than a human being. No karmas are accumulated. So these are the punyam, the sanchita karma is the punyam and the papam that we have accumulated in the past human lives. Does not fructify at the same time. So it's like this master data center kind of a thing where it needs the right kind of circumstances for fructification. So there was this other interesting article that I came across, and I just could not, I closed my computer and I could not get back to it. I could not find it. It had talked about ways of looking at karma, different ways. There were different meanings for, different ways of dividing karma. And when we talk about sanchita karma, prarabdha karma, and agami karma, it is we're looking at it as at the time of fructification from those lenses. And then there were like a whole bunch of other things. I just could not come across it. I found that very interesting. I'll see if I can find it again and then share it on the group. But it did talk about a lot of different ways, different lenses of looking at karma. But when we talk about the time of fructification, that is when we would think about sanchita, prarabdha, and agami. Okay, so this bank account, basically, a part of it fructifies in the current janma as prarabdha karma. Okay, and once in this janma now, our sanchita karma has no effect. That remains, it has the punyams and the papams has no effect now. Once that prarabdha karma has started and we are living our current janma, the sanchita karma has no effect on this current janma. Okay. Whatever unexhausted agami karma we would have in this current life is added to the sanchita karma at time of death. So once the death, then Sanchita karma in the seed form is what exists at the time of death in terms of karmas of that jiva. So these are the features of Sanchita karma. Any questions? No questions at all? I must have done a good job.
Yeah, I think you did a fantastic job. I think the last few points.
You added a good Sanchita karma to today.
No, it's agami karma, you know. That Sanchita karma has
No,
no
Sanchita
effect
karma
on
is
this.
it's your current karmic debt. I mean, put together. So it is getting added there.
All right. Okay.
Okay, so let's jump to some interesting aspects of karma in itself. And I'm going to ask you a few things and make it look really complicated for each one of you. So we have been continuously saying that karma is all about the conscious actions that I take, isn't it? Some of you have said that, and this is what has been there in commentary as well. So does subconscious action which happens by itself does not become a part of karma?
It does. Subconscious action does.
So most of the time, everybody is saying it's only the conscious action, conscious action. So nowhere, Asha, you want to say something?
No, just about the fact that, see, you might, I mean, I'll interpret it this way, that you might get vrittis in your mind, right? But if at that level you can stop it before it becomes a proper thought, then you have controlled it. Before it becomes a thought or an action, if you can control it, at the time when it's like bubbles rising in the water, right? The vrittis are coming. You can feel it, but you stop it even before it becomes a full-fledged thought. Then ideally, that that vritti that came should not lead to karma, is what I think, because that is coming because of your tendencies.
Right. So my question again is coming to the same point. So those tendency which are subconscious. So most of the time we are saying only when we take conscious actions, we are sort of, then we define it as a good or a bad action, right? Consciously, I have decided to do good, so-called good things, and consciously I have not decided to do so-called good things. My point here is that we're talking about consciously taking an action, but all the actions that subconsciously happens, does it lead to karma?
I think it does, because it's also again like what we discussed earlier, that these are patterns, right? Even your subconscious are somewhere creating patterns, and it sat there because of some conscious action in the past, and it's become subconscious maybe. So
You're right. So your subconscious actions, doesn't it lead to karma phalam?
Yeah, as long as
yeah,
there's a result. I mean, there is
Yes.
a result. So when there's a result, it adds to the karma.
It has the karma, right? So your both your conscious as well as your subconscious patterns adds to your karma. It's not only about your conscious way. And some of them say that your subconscious pattern today has been a conscious action at some point of time. Make sense? So I have consciously decided how to learn a car. At some point of time, it becomes a subconscious action. So I continue to drive a car irrespective of knowing that I'm driving a car. Or I continue to take a shower or continue to brush my teeth, whatever, at a subconscious. So even your subconscious patterns, actions also lead to an outcome. Just as conscious action leads to an outcome, your subconscious action also leads to an outcome. So everything is a part of your karma. Right? So this is, and I've not been able to find any specific reference in Upanishads where they clearly say only conscious things, only when you make a conscious choice that becomes a karma.
I have a question, Bidan. So when you say subconscious action, you're basically talking about actions which are happening automatically. You're not talking about thoughts then. You're not talking about our subconscious thoughts. Now we say 90% of our, we don't know what is happening in our subconscious, right? We are aware of only some percentage of our brain activity or whatever. Now that thing which we are not aware of, I'm assuming you're not talking about that. I think what you're talking about is that 90% which we are not aware of. And
isn't that your karma too?
But I don't have any conscious thought.
But is that your karma or not?
If I'm not aware of it, so are we saying an automatic action? I understand what you're talking about, driving in automated, like you're not concentrating on the driving, but the driving is happening through us. So we are driving or we are doing some action. Okay. A thought, let's say it's coming. No, this can hold true for an action, but let's say we're talking about a thought.
Yes.
Okay. Now thought, when you are having, you will, the moment when we say thought itself means conscious. You are conscious of the thought.
Yes.
Right? You can't have unconscious thoughts. You can only have conscious thoughts.
Yes.
Correct? So when we say I was a little confused by that subconscious word, because when we are saying subconscious, we are actually meaning actions without our conscious attention.
So let's call it unconscious right now. So let's not even talk about subconscious. Subconscious is something that you can reach on to through, for example, if you get into hypnosis or you get into other things, and you can go to subconscious. Now let's go a level deeper, which is unconscious, which is what you're talking about, right? The deep-seated vrittis on which we have no access to at all. We are not able to access that. Is that our karma or not?
But that, if that results in a thought or an action, if that results in a thought, now let's assume I have a vritti, okay, some vritti that has to have some manifestation.
Right.
That manifestation will be either in thought or in action.
Right.
The moment it comes as a thought or an action, it has to lead to some karma, is my understanding.
True.
That is what Kaushal was talking about, that fructifying into something.
So when it fructifies in a specific situation, I'm just taking from where Uma and Kaushal is talking about, it becomes drishtaphalam. Correct? It becomes something that you are aware of. But when it is sitting at a subconscious or an unconscious level, you are not even aware of it. You can't even take responsibility of it. So let's take example of a child who has gone through trauma in first 2 years. Or let's take example of a child who has gone through a trauma when the child is in the mother's womb. Correct? And because of that trauma, the brain structure of the child has changed, and the child is very prone to anxiety attacks. Yes? Which means that there is a karma which the child is not even aware of. Something which has happened, which is deep in the subconscious mind of the child, you're not even aware of that. So does that also affect your outcomes? It does. Something which has not been in your control. So when we are talking about karma, a lot of time we are saying that only conscious actions are becoming a part of your karma. Point is, any thought, any action, any words, whether conscious, subconscious, unconscious, everything will have an outcome. And anything that has an outcome is a karma. And one can always argue those vrittis and tendencies that I'm not aware of right now, which is unconscious, is on account of some of the conscious actions that I have taken in my previous months. One can always argue on those lines, but it does not take away the fact that everything is karma. So a lot of them will say, okay, the plants don't have a karma, the animals don't have a karma because they're all instinctive and there is no free will attached to it. So a lot of times we kind of look at the sense of free will, the sense of agency, only when we sort of look at it that, okay, I have taken a decision, therefore I have created a karma. The karma is an ongoing process. Whether you are having a sense of agency, you don't have a sense of agency, does not matter, because every action will have an outcome. Whether you're doing it knowingly, you're doing it unknowingly. Suppose if I unknowingly basically step on, say, ants. So then one way to say is then you are not accumulating papam because of the fact that you have unknowingly done it. But if you have knowingly killed the ants, you have accumulated papam in your books. This is how people explain, right? That only where you have knowingly done certain things, it kind of creates punyam and papam. If you're unknowingly doing things because of your own, then you're not creating any kind of a karma. So we need to think about this. Whether it is only a conscious action that creates a karma, or is it all actions? And therefore, whether we need to be aware of, we may not be able to aware of 100% of all the thoughts and things which is going inside. But the point of the matter is, yes, Asha.
So Bidan, I remember reading that animals, and you might correct me, like, because I remember reading that animals don't accumulate, don't generate new karma. They are just bhog, they're just what is that word? Bhoga
Bhukta,
something.
bhukta. Yeah.
So they are just doing that, and they are just kind of exhausting the karma because they are not having the decision making power. They don't actually generate new karma, is what I remember reading. So I'm not sure, I cannot refer to any shloka for
No,
this,
you're
but
right. You're right. You're right. So I'm just trying to say that there are too many complications when it comes to these things, when it comes to karma, that whether animals accrue karma, whether the plants accrue karma, whether so somewhere as a human being, when we say we are accumulating karma, somewhere we are making an assumption that being a human being, we have complete control on our thoughts. And I have the free will to choose what is the right thing for me. That is the general assumption that we are doing. And that assumption itself can be challenged. Because as a human being also, we are greatly influenced by our own tendencies. So the tendencies of my previous lifetimes, the tendencies when I am brought in a specific family, specific culture, specific society, the circumstances that I have gone in my early lifetimes. So I am greatly influenced by those tendencies. That tendencies now decide what is right and what is wrong for me. Correct? So I then take action basis those tendencies. So are you able to kind of see that there is a whole lot of tendencies that we are all influenced by, and those tendencies work by itself. Those tendencies work by itself. Whether you like it or not, it expresses. Right? So when they're expressing, just like an animal expresses, say for example, there's a dog who is sitting in a class and a human being sitting in a class. If a dog feels like barking, it will bark. But a human being will decide not to talk when the class is going on, because we have certain discrimination power that we have. So basis that discrimination power, I am able to take certain decisions which a dog may not have. But I'm just trying to tell you is that then there is a gradation. Now, every human being will not have the same amount of ability to discern or discriminate, because every human being is again under a great influence of its past tendencies. So when we are looking at karma, let us try and see it holistically, that we are under the influence of a lot of tendencies ourselves, and every moment things are happening, and the only way to kind of break it is by being a lot more aware. So Asha, just to answer your point, when Even I'm coming to the awareness of thoughts and patterns and all, you will see as the life takes you and as the level of, if we get into certain amount of meditation, certain amount of contemplation, the level of awareness also increases. The thoughts that we were not even aware of, you will be you start being aware of a lot more thoughts. Say, for example, people who get into deep states of meditation, they are able to see those thoughts which I'm not aware in my normal waking state. Because every thought is vibrating at a specific frequency. And once you settle down more and more and more, you can actually see those thoughts, see those tendencies. Right? So everything, say for example, with the blood is flowing in my veins, it's happening automatically. That's karma. Food is getting digested. That is karma. So I'm trying to remember a name of a person I'm not able to remember. I said, okay, forget it. Let me go on to another task. But the brain continues to work. And suddenly after 10 minutes, the brain throws up the name of a person, which means even if I'm not aware of, the work is happening in my subconscious. That is karma. So karma, whether we are aware or not, it is happening. It is continuously happening every moment. And every action is leading to a specific outcome. And that outcome we categorize in punyam and papam basis our definition of what is right and wrong, what is comfortable and uncomfortable. As Asha was mentioning, you may be going through a great difficult situation right now, and therefore you may say, this is papam for me. I may be basically be in this bad situation because this is papam, I have done some bad deeds and therefore I'm going through this situation. But all you know, you are going through difficult situation for evolution, isn't it? So how can you then be so clear about the situation, that trouble time that I'm going through is papam? And now the good times that I'm going through, well, I'm making a lot of money, I'm doing too good, it's punyam. How? Because that can lead to something which is reckless. So you will never know whether it is punyam or papam. While they kind of, so we have to be a little bit careful about these things in terms of what is punyam, what is papam, what is good, what is bad. Because, and there were dharma shastras which were written at a specific point of time, keeping in mind how the society was structured, and then you sort of list down few things. But if we really go into depth of it, when of course we are going to do Bhagavad Gita very soon, and when you kind of get into Upanishads in a very deep manner, you will understand that the karma which is supposed to be the best form of karma is my ability to come back to my essence, which is Sach Chit Ananda. Any action that I'm doing to break my patterns, to become more aware, to reclaim my real nature, which is Sat, which is Chit, which is consciousness, and which is Ananda, which is the ultimate source of joy. Any action in the direction of these, my ability to own up my essential nature, which is Sat Chit Ananda, or understanding Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, that everything is one and the same. Any action in those direction basically qualifies as spiritual action. Is it making sense? Right? That is the essence. Otherwise, when we refer to Dharma Shastras, they will say these are the 5 things that you should do that will earn you punyams. If you don't do these things, it will earn you papams. That is a part of karma. Is it making sense?
Yeah.
Lot of sense.
Right? Okay. We've almost kind of finished with the time. The second thing was about the animal thing. I'll just take 2-3 minutes to try and explain that. There was a discussion happening that if we do not so good karmas, is it possible for us to start degrading and be born as an animal in the next janma, correct? Is that we were trying to contemplate next time? Now, these are the concepts which has come from stories in Puranas. But if you refer to Upanishads or whatever little bit I have read so far, nowhere have they mentioned it very clearly that you will fall back if you don't do right things. That's number one. I have not seen a reference so far in a proper Upanishad or in Bhagavad Gita which talks about you becoming an animal or anything if at all you do not do or if you ever do bad things. That's point number one. Point number two, I follow my guru who his own Swami, and there are people who are enlightened like him who have experienced certain things. Most of them have a view that the world that you are always in a path of evolution. You are always going to become better in your next lifetime compared to your previous lifetime, which means your journey is always evolving to be better. It is highly unlikely that you're going to go down. So if at all someone is doing adharmic acts, it is still a shade better than what that person would have done in his or her previous lifetimes. So if the person was -5, I'm just taking a number just for an explanation. I don't mean to judge anyone here. If I'm basically saying any act of adharma is in minus and any act of dharma is in plus. So in last Janma, if it was -5, in this Janma, it is -4, it is -3, -2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So each one of us are in the process of evolution. So it is, we are not going to fall back. That is my reference. Third reference that I have understood, which is a little bit more technical, which they say is that if you have certain very hardwired tendencies in this lifetime, suppose if you are, if you have a vritti or of eating a lot of food and you want to eat a lot of food, and in this lifetime you have not been able to satiate that tendency of eating a lot of food, for all you know, in the next lifetime you'll be born as a pig. I'm just saying this is another example which has been given. Now, being born as a pig is basically to satiate your need for eating a lot of food. And being a pig does not necessarily mean it's bad. You may think it's bad because you are saying, oh my God, look at the pig. He's basically in dirt and is going through a bad time. But who knows, for all you know, the pig might be having a better life than us. Because the pig may be enjoying, the pig may be feeling a lot more at home than we feel at. I'm just saying. So it's very difficult to say just because you're born as a dog in your next lifetime, you are actually having a miserable life. Who knows? Because to know whether a dog has a worse life than us, then I have to be a dog to understand that, which I am not. You can never compare that, right? That a life of an animal or a plant is substandard compared to the life that we are leading. And therefore, if I become an animal in my next lifetime, I have basically downgraded from my evolution. There's an assumption that their life is worse than us. Just because they don't have free will or they don't have the ability to take actions and they are instinctive in nature. Therefore, they are not necessarily. But this is another explanation which is given that for all you know, that this subtle body, the Sukshma Sharira, has its journey, and then there's too much of tendency that it gets born as an animal to kind of fulfill that tendency and then gets back into. So that is again an evolution. That you fast track your evolution, again, not being born as a human being and only going after food, you kind of go through that process quickly in an animal form and then continue the evolution. So the point which I'm trying to say is evolution continues in a better direction, ultimately to realize yourself of who you are. So ultimately the point what most of the enlightened people say is every one of us, whether we like it or not, will realize our essential nature, which is Satchitananda. When we take a spiritual journey, we kind of fast track the process. Even if you're not doing this, you will still reach there. So nobody is coming down, is my understanding. Any questions on this? Perfect. What is very silent today? Great. I think it's better off that I'm not there. Get to hear a lot more things. Great. So we've already exceeded the time. We are due for prayer.
After all the discussion on all the types of karma and everything, I wish to end this today's session with the shloka from chapter 3, shloka 8 of Bhagavad Gita, where Bhagavan says that irrespective of what you do, the karma has to be performed. And for this gross body, for this sharira, to have a peaceful journey for the yatra, karma is the only means. Okay. Om Niyatam kuru karmatvam karmajayo ya karmanaha sharira yatra pichate na prasidye manaha. Om सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Thank you.
Thank you so much. See you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.